Welcome into your Thursday edition of Bet. I'm your host, Anita Marks. We've got a great show lined up for you. PJ Carlissimo is going to join us. We've got a big night tonight, the NBA draft. So PJ is going to jump on board to talk about some of the futures bets out there for possibly the number one pick. We all know Wemby's going first. Also, Mike Clay will be joining us, talk about some NFL futures bets as we are inching closer and closer to training camps opening, and Tyler is pulling double duty today. Not only is he hosting Daily Wager, but he will be making an appearance here on Bet. So let's start first things first. Again, big night tonight is the NBA draft. Everybody is expecting Wemby to go number one overall, but you need some big time cash in order to pay off to make that bet. A better bet is possibly who's going to win Rookie of the Year. We can see right here, Wemby favored at minus 225, Scoot Henderson at plus 330, 350. That's really where my money would be rolling. Holmgren at plus 375. All right, PJ, great to have you on Bet. Let's dive right into it. You spent several years with Greg Popovich in San Antonio. You know this man better than anyone. So, how do you foresee him using Wemby, both on the court and from a load management perspective? How do you think they're envisioning using Wemby in his first year in the NBA?
I don't think he has too many preconceived notions right now, Anita. I think that, frankly, with any rookie, you don't know what to expect. And I think especially with Victor, I think it's going to be a learning process, a good learning process. But I mean, it'll be a question of like how much of a focal point of the offense will he be? He's an excellent shooter. The two things that the people at the Spurs have repeated to me time after time, and I've not seen him in person. They say he's got a beautiful stroke. Probably needs work on his shot selection because, again, he was pretty much the whole thing for the Mets. So he had to, force a lot of shots, take off balance shots, do some things that he won't be doing in San Antonio. So I think the first thing offensively is Pop's going to, decide just, what are his strengths? How deep can he shoot the ball? Is he going to shoot a lot of threes? Things like that. But it literally will be a learning process. I think the Victor that we see in February and March is going to be significantly different than the one we see in October and November. Not necessarily because he's doing things differently, because Pop and the Spurs, the staff, has learned about Victor and vice versa. And, how does he fit in with the other young players in San Antonio? And I think that process will be the same with any rookie that you get. You just never know, what you can expect from a young guy, how quickly he's going to adapt to the league. The thing Victor has going for him is that he's played 3 years of professional basketball. He's played against men. It's different. Is it Tim Duncan coming out of Wake Forest, after 4 years and the best player in college basketball? No, but nor is a 19-year-old college kid. A lot of the guys in the draft this year. He's way more advanced beyond that. He clearly needs a lot of strength. He needs more strength, let me put it that way. But again, Kevin Durant, when I saw him, I was, surprised. I was lucky enough to coach him his rookie year in Seattle, and he looked so thin, and people said, well, how's he going to make it in the league? Well, obviously, he didn't have any trouble. He was rookie of the year, and he's never looked back. So Victor's strength is something that will come in the future. And the other thing, I talked about his shot. The other thing they talk about all the time is the shot blocking. You can't teach that. I mean, you need to have the skills, the length, the athleticism that he's got. But he's got incredible timing. I mean, just solely as a shot blocker, he could make a major contribution to the Spurs next year.
Yeah, it's really amazing. His height and his athleticism combined, maybe we should start calling him the unicorn, which leads me to the trade that went down.
Yeah.
That, of course, the announcement made earlier today. I'm in New York. We called Kristaps Porzingis the unicorn for quite a while here in New York.
Exactly.
Now he's traded to Boston. Marcus Smart no longer there. He's in Memphis. We'll get into that in just a second. But I want to get your thoughts on this trade. Does this make Boston better? And if so, how?
It could make them better if Kristaps is healthy for a change. I heard Legs today talking about what a great trade it was for Boston, and he's bragging on the fact that he played 65 games last year. I mean, that's what Porzingis has been. He's been hurt most of his career. So A, he's got to be healthy. B, he's a stat machine. You look at him, he's almost averaged 20 points a game. He's averaged almost 8 rebounds a game. He shoots 80% from the free throw line. He can shoot it from 3. He blocks a couple shots a game. If he puts those numbers up on a winning team, Boston Celtics, yeah, he's going to make a huge difference, particularly if he gives them that rim protection. You know, they had him up front with, you know, the 3-headed center that they got right now. And it's, I don't want to say easier is always a bad word, but when people get ready to play Boston, they're not going to put Porzingis as the number one guy. You got to stop. I mean, before you even get to him, you got to talk about, you know, Jason and Jalen. So it's going to be really nice for him to be at best the third option on that team. So I think the potential for him to be really, really good for Boston is there. I don't think it's a lock. It's a lock in Memphis. They couldn't have asked for a better player. The guy that, you know, we all use the cliche, Marcus was the heart and soul of the Boston Celtics. They're going to miss that, the intangibles that he brought to the table a lot, because he was different than most of the guys on the Celtics. Conversely, he fits right in with Memphis. Memphis is a team with an edge. How about, like, what are we going to do? How do we replace Ja Morant for 25 games? Well, how about getting one of the better point guards in the league, the defensive player of the year, guy who was in the finals 2 years ago and is used to playing in the playoffs every year? They couldn't have got a better addition to their team if you're Memphis. I mean, I'm a huge Marcus Smart fan. I think it's a home run for Memphis. I don't think it's a bad deal for Boston, but replacing those intangibles, not going to be easy. And Kristaps better be healthy, and he better bring it, because, you know, to be a productive player on a winning team is something. I mean, he played well in Dallas, but I mean, like, to have a solid year and then go play well in the playoffs, because the Boston Celtics are one of those teams that, true, you know, everybody says it, but it's true in Boston. If they don't win a championship, it wasn't a good year. So the bar is going to be set pretty high for Porzingis in Boston.
No denying that. The Boston Celtics 23rd in shooting percentage in the paint, third best by 3 behind the 3-point line. So obviously that helps them there. I'm with you, PJ. I like the trade with Marcus Smart going to Memphis more so than I do KP going to Boston. And especially since it just seems like all the off-the-field issues, right, with Memphis. Great to have a guy in there like Marcus Smart, a veteran, a leader, somebody who could come in and really help this team off the court as well as on. Agree or disagree?
Totally agree, Anita. And it's interesting, too, because I think he's going to have some credibility with Ja that other players might not. If it was the choir boy going in there going, hey, this is the way you got to be, Marcus has a little bit of an edge. Marcus has a little history himself. I think he's going to have tremendous credibility with Ja and the people surrounding Ja, and say, hey, we got to listen to this guy. He can tell us what we need to do to become a good professional. Ja's already a good basketball player. That's not the issue. He's not a professional. He's got to be a good professional. And Marcus Smart will be, I think, an excellent teacher for him in that way. And I think the fact that, you know, Marcus comes in with some rough edges himself, he's going to listen to him. This isn't some, you know, pie in the sky. This is what it's like. This is a guy that's been through the wars, been in and out of some scuffles. You know, he's done some things himself that he needed to improve upon. So I think he's going to have tremendous credibility and a tremendous potential to help Ja Morant.
It's nice to know we're on the same page, PJ. Really appreciate you joining us here on Bet. Thank you so much.
Anita, great being with you. Thanks very much for having me.
All right, Tyler, you heard the man, right? And so much to dive into. Big night tonight in the NBA. So what does this mean in regard to how you're going to go to the window when it comes to the Rookie of the Year? You heard what PJ had to say. He knows Pop better than most. He's got his finger on the pulse of that organization better than most. Are you going to the window and wagering that Wendy is going to win Rookie of the Year during NBA season?
Yeah, Anita, I'm comfortable doing it at this price. It's probably the cheapest way to invest in Victor Wembanyama. We're not going to lay minus 20,000 for him to be the first overall pick. So it's minus 225-ish for him to be Rookie of the Year. Yeah, I will take that because he is a LeBron-level prospect. He is someone who could, by his second or third year, be a top 10, top 15 player in the NBA. He has just the most unique blend of length and skill ever brought to the NBA by any prospect ever. So I guess the only concern is, does he play the requisite number of games? And PJ kind of said, it'll be a wait and see approach there with Pop, just make sure he's, handling the workload. He's a little skinny right now. He needs to add some more bulk, but that will come with NBA weight training and NBA diet. So I'm not too concerned about that. It looks like Wemby loves to play. I think Pop and the Spurs, based on what PJ is saying, have no reason to try and really keep him under bubble wraps. They want to see him kind of grow. And as PJ said, he's already played against adults. He's already played against grown men for the past 3 years. And he's handled it very, very well. So I think the transition may almost be easier for him than some of these college prospects that are coming in after just 1 year in the collegiate ranks. So I like Wemby. I'm comfortable laying that price for him to be Rookie of the Year. There's probably only going to be one other player, depending on the spot that he lands, that is a real challenger to what Wembanyama will put up in terms of these statistics as a rookie, which I'm expecting to be 20-plus points and 8-9 rebounds.
I'm going to roll with Scoot Henderson. The marathon, it's Wemby. The sprint, to me, this coming season, I think it's going to be Henderson, of course, playing that guard position. I think he's going to put up more gaudy numbers. I think he's going to be needed more. And so for me, I think that there's more value going Henderson at plus 350 than Wemby at minus 225. Let's talk about the trade that went down, and of course, big news that broke this morning, and you heard PJ talk about that as well. NBA futures for the Celtics, now that they have KP in the mix, are you running to the window? Are you walking? Or are you not even walking in the door, Tyler?
I'm walking. I was closer to running yesterday when we thought it was going to be Malcolm Brogdon, not Marcus Smart. That was the piece that Boston had to unload to get Kristaps Porzingis. But now that it's Smart, that has me pausing a little bit. Like PJ alluded to, Smart is the heart and soul defensive player of the year of that team. He's the toughness. He's the tenacity. And that's not what Kristaps Porzingis is bringing. He's bringing size. He's bringing length. He's bringing great shooting from the perimeter, which is great, which they need. But they're taking away a big piece of that heart, tenacity, and DNA of this team. So I'm cautiously, somewhat slightly optimistic that there will be a better team than they were a season ago, but the Smart loss is a way more significant piece leaving Boston than it was when we thought it was Malcolm Brogdon, Anita.
Yeah, I'm treading lightly. In fact, I am not going to the window. I've got some major concerns, as PJ alluded to, in regard to KP's health, along with Robert Williams, along with Horford, who's going to be 37, 38. I just have some concerns. I know that this was a trade meant for them to improve their percentage shooting in the paint, but dude's got to do better than just 65 games in one season. I need to see a bigger track record. Hang tight, Tyler. I know you're going to come back. We're going to do a little good word, but let's switch to the NFL for just a second. Never a dull moment talking about the NFL. Here are some of the highest passing yard props we can see in this coming NFL season. No surprise, right? Patrick Mahomes 1, Joe Burrow 2, Kirk Cousins 3, Justin Herbert 4. But look at Josh Allen rounding in at 5 at 4,300 and a half. All right, it is time to play a little place or pass, and we bring in one of the best, the finest at ESPN when we're talking fantasy football and prop bets, and that is Mike Clay. No surprise when we're talking QB passing yards that at number 1, it's Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, it's Cool Joe Burrow. But Mike, let's start with Josh Allen. Under 43 and a half passing yards. Keep in mind, this is the 5th highest heading into the season, and he did not surpass that last year. Are you placing or are you passing?
Anita, I'm placing on the under here for Josh Allen. My projection comes in at 41.63, and I'm looking actually back at the last 3 seasons. In 2020 and 2021, he went over this mark, but barely. If he had missed one game, he actually appeared in all 17 games those seasons, 16 and 17 games. Had he missed one game, his weekly average suggests he would have went under. Last season, he did miss that one game. It was the canceled game, and he was under this mark. So basically what I'm saying here is I'm playing the numbers, right? He has to play every game, and if you bet on the over, you're expecting him to play in every game. And that's a hard thing to do, to count on those 17 games played. Only 8 did it last season. Quarterbacks that played in all 17 games, and the year before it was only 11. So again, this is just one of the things where it's not really a shot at Josh Allen. It's just a numbers game. It's so hard to stay healthy and not have other random things happen, whether it's late season rest, a postponed game, whatever it is, to make it through all 17 games. It just doesn't happen that often. So again, numbers too high. I'm going under.
Now brace yourself. I know you and I go back and forth on this. I always like the overs, and you're like, Anita, why? The unders is how you win your money. But I'm with you. I'm placing it. Again, 4,283 last season. He's only gone over this total 2 of his last 5 seasons, or 5 seasons total in the NFL. And you're absolutely right. Risk of injury is a concern here, especially as often, Mike, as he rushes with the football, right? Like, even with Brian Dable now gone and here in New York with the Giants, he still carries the football. And so there's a huge risk of injury there and potentially him missing a few games. So I'm with you. I'm going to place the number on the under for Josh Allen. All right, let's head a little further south. Down in Miami, we've got Tua, 3,800 and a half passing yards. Are you placing or are you passing?
Yeah, I mean, I just talked to you the other day on the radio, and I got your impressions on Tua, and I feel like we might disagree on this one. I'm going to place on the over 3,800 yards here for Tua. Look, my projection, 3,870. It's not a big gap, but keep in mind that's for only 15 games. But look, he can afford, here's the thing, he can afford to miss some time and still maybe easily hit this mark. Last season, his 17-game pace was 4,870, over 1,000 yards higher than this mark. And that was, there was only 12 games where he played a majority of the snaps. I mean, he would have been very close to that number had he stayed healthy. And actually, if you go back another year to 2021, when he was still kind of learning the NFL game, his pace that season over 17 games was 38-36, also over this line. So last year he had the 3rd highest average depth of throw. He's going to push it downfield to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. That's going to allow a lot of yardage. He was 1st in yards per pass attempt. He was top 5 in QBR. He played really well. So look, I know we're worried about the concussions. We hope he stays healthy and on the field, but I think a reasonable games play projection of, say, 15 games is enough to push him over this mark.
You are absolutely right. Like, you're on the mark when it comes to me, because I am passing, no pun intended, with the Tua over bet. He has not surpassed 35-50 in his career in the NFL. And I think, listen, I pray to God that Tua is going to stay healthy this season, right? And what I was reading, he took up jiu-jitsu to try to understand how to, get hit and take a fall and not push for that extra yards, where he's opening himself up to injury. But Mike, let's be honest, and you work with Stephania Bell, who again is one of the best in the business when it comes to health and safety with professional athletes and really breaking it down. He's probably one concussion away about having a serious conversation in regards to should he continue a career in the NFL. That is just a huge red flag for me. On top of that, they've got a lot of depth at the running back position. I think to keep him healthy, I think they're going to have a much more balanced offense. And Tyreek Hill, some issues right now that are out there. Not sure what's going to happen. NFL investigating something that happened in a marina this past week with his agent, Drew Rosenhaus. I just have some really red flags here with Tua going over that passing yardage. We'll see what happens. Last but not least, let's bring it here to my own backyard, and we're talking about Daniel Jones, quarterback of the New York Football Giants, under 17 and a half passing touchdowns. Are you placing or are you passing?
Yeah, get your New York fans to tune in today, because I'm actually taking the over, not hating on the New York teams for once. I'm going with the over here. I'm placing I guess I'm passing on the under. You said the under. I'm going to pass on that one. I'm going to place on the over 17 and a half passing touchdowns, though. My projection's 20. That's a pretty sizable gap as far as projections versus props go. Look, I know he only had 15 passing touchdowns last season, but He had 22 total, right? He ran for 7. He was a little over his head in that department. I think some of those rushing touchdowns are going to move to passing touchdowns. And also, this was an offense that was mid-pack in touchdowns last season, believe it or not, overall. And they improved their targets, right? You bring in Darren Waller, who's going to the heavy favorite to lead this team in targets, of course, this season. Paris Campbell brought in. He looks good so far. Perhaps a full season of Isaiah Hodgins if he's the real deal. We'll see what they get out of Jalen Hyatt. But they have a lot of guys in the fold here, certainly an upgraded group of targets. So that gives me a lot of optimism here. And by the way, Daniel Jones has done this before. He threw for 24 touchdowns as a rookie. Now, it's been rough the last 3 years, but we've seen it from him before. It's in him, and if the targets are better, I think he can get to that mark. But again, 17.5 is not a high mark at all. This is too low. He almost got there last year with that ridiculously low number. So I'm going the other way here. I'm placing the over for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, and so we are both passing on the under. We're on the same page here. And kudos to you, being an Eagles fan, willing to support the blue. Mike, really appreciate that. But as you stated, right, he had 15 passing touchdowns last season with, what was he working with? Hodgepodge, group of number 3 wide receivers on somebody else's roster. So now you bring in Darren Waller, and reports out of OTAs, he's not going to be your prototypical tight end sitting there blocking 30% of the time. No, he's going to be playing the X, the Y, the Z. Brian Dable's going to move him all over the field. I heard Paris Campbell hasn't dropped a pass at all in OTAs. And Jalen Hyatt has to be probably one of my favorite wide receivers coming out of this year's NFL draft, coming over from Tennessee, a guy who could really stretch the field, which will open up things for Darren Waller. I'm so excited to see what Daniel Jones could do this season with some weapons, legit weapons around him. So I am going to pass on the under. I say over with you as well. Mike Clay, always great having you on Bet, my friend. Thank you so much.
You got it.
All right, so Tyler, welcome back to Bet. Let's play a little good word on some of the big storylines in or around our wide world of sports this week. Brandon Miller, who's expected to go number 2 tonight in the NBA draft, came out and said that Paul George is his GOAT, greatest of all time, over LeBron James. What? With that being said, what's your good word, my friend?
Before I say the good word, what a great job upgrading from Mike Clay to me, Tyler Fulgham, on Bet right now. So the show has already gotten better with that move there. My good word for Brandon Miller is injured? Like, do you have a head injury? Because Paul George, how can he be a GOAT over LeBron when he has spent a big portion of his career, especially his time with the LA Clippers, being injured? LeBron was a guy who played up until about, 2 years ago, every single game. He was never hurt. Postseason, regular season, preseason, Olympics, it didn't matter. The guy was a cyborg. He was a machine. And then, of course, you put all the championships, MVPs, scoring records, etc. on top of that. Paul George, a great player. No doubt about that. I'm not saying he's not good, but he hasn't won a championship. He has often been injured, especially this juncture of his career, and that's prevented his teams, like the Clippers, from realizing what is probably their real potential. So I'm wondering if Brandon Miller has an injured head, making a statement like that.
So my good word is really a letter, and it's the letter Z, as in Gen Z. I'm a true believer, and those are people who were born between 1990 and 2010, which Brandon Miller was. He is Gen Z. I'm a true believer that in hosting Sports Talk Radio, in the debate at who's the greatest basketball player of all time, really depends on when you were born. Mm-hmm. If you're a millennial, you're going to say LeBron James. If you're a Gen X like me, I'm going to say Michael Jordan. If you're a baby boomer like my parents, you're either going to say Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain. So I'm just a true believer that a lot of us obviously, grow up watching the NBA at a certain period of time, believe who the greatest of all time is based on our own personal experience. There aren't many, obviously, millennials or Gen Zs who watched Michael Jordan in their heyday. Mm-hmm. And so I just feel like the argument can never be won in any way, shape, or form. So my good word, or really the letter, is Z. Number 2, we got to talk about the Cincinnati Reds, who are just red hot. They've won 11 straight. KC, as well as the Astros, as well as the Rockies. With that being said, with the Reds on this hot streak, what's your good word?
Exciting. And I hate to admit it because I'm a Cardinal fan and they're at the bottom of that division, maybe the biggest disappointment in Major League Baseball relative to expectation this season. But the Reds are exciting. They bring up Elly De La Cruz, who can't miss. Every time he steps in the batter's box and puts one in the gap, you just want to watch him fly from home plate to third. The guy has elite speed. He hit his first homer, almost left Great American Ballpark, an absolute missile that went 460 feet. He's got a cannon of an arm. The other young players they've brought up around, like McClain, like Steer, some pitchers like Andrew Abbott. I mean, they're exciting young baseball players. They have unique and exciting skill sets for the modern game. Speed, power pitching. So, yeah, even as a Cardinal fan, as a Redbird fan, the Cincinnati Reds are one of the more exciting teams in the league, and it's exciting to watch them win.
Yeah, my good word is Cruz, as in De La Cruz. You're absolutely right. Ever since he was called up on June 6th, Tyler, they've won 12 of their last 14 games. He's got 2 home runs, 1 you alluded to, 6 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, and he's batting .321. Has definitely ignited some excitement in this Reds dugout. That's for sure. Last but not least, this week we have Dalvin Cook, who came out and said, man, it'd be awesome if both DeAndre Hopkins and I ended up on the same team in a package deal. As we know, they're both looking for new homes. With that being said, what's your good word?
Yeah, it's Madden. Like, this seems like DeAndre and Dalvin are trying to play Madden together, forming super teams on PlayStation. So it might be maddening for fans of division foes if they end up doing it. I don't think it's quite as possible in real life NFL football as Dalvin and DeAndre may hope. But in Madden, of course, you can get those two on the same team and see what you can do together. But Madden's the word I'm going to use because this seems like you're playing video games rather than real life NFL football, trying to team up in this league and go to one team.
Yeah, my good word is dynamic. Can you imagine? And I did a deeper dive here in regard to, I think there's 4 teams that realistically could utilize both and afford both. One is the Patriots, who we know DeAndre Hopkins has already had a visit with. And you imagine Dalvin Cook in that backfield with Stevenson? That would be just ridiculous. And then, of course, you've got the Jets, who we know were toying around with the possibility of OBJ joining them until, of course, the Ravens gave him $15 million a year. And they have Breece Hall with some question marks whether or not he's going to be ready to go coming off of ACL repair surgery. Then you've got the Bills. They've got to make some cap space moves, but we've seen it done before. That would just be ridiculous. And then I think the Browns, Tyler, are a sneaky landing place. Ownership, the Haslams, man, they pull all the stops, right, in regard to making their team ready to go. And you imagine that backfield with Dalvin Cook as well as Nick Chubb, because they don't have Kareem Hunt anymore. So those are 4 teams that I have on my radar. So yeah, it will be interesting. Tyler,
well, I was going to say, when you mentioned the Browns yesterday on Daily Wager, that caught my attention because they do need a backup running back, and they could still, DeAndre and Deshaun have that history together, and you're right about that ownership group. So that one caught my attention, even though I said it's probably unlikely. If I had to wait which of those teams you mentioned is most likely, the Browns kind of make some sense to me, Anita. You caught my attention with that one.
Yeah, I think that could be a sneaky play. Tyler, always great having you on Bet. Thank you so much. Like I said, you're pulling double duty. You are going to be driving the ship for us later on tonight, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, Daily Wager on ESPN2. Tyler, I'll see you then.
See you there.
You got it. As always, we like to end the show with Before I Let You Go. And we're going to end it with some golf. That's right, because the first tournament of the year, or I should say the last major of the year is coming up. Right now, we have the Travelers Championship. It's going on right now. Go Denny McCarthy. That's the guy who I picked to win this week. But the British Open, as they like to call the Open, is just a few weeks away, July 20th to the 23rd. Here are some of the odds in regard to winning the Open. John Rahm favored, but keep in mind, he's 16th off the tee, 57th around the green. Scotty Scheffler coming in at 2. He's first in pretty much every category, but 138th in putting. And then, of course, you've got Rory coming in. He's 103rd in putting. Now, again, the Open Championship taking place the 20th to the 23rd, Royal Liverpool Golf Course, built in 1869, Northwest in England, hosted 12 times, a link-style course. Wind is going to be in play. Get this, Justin Thomas, this is wild. Justin Thomas, 28-1. That's what he's favored, 28-1. Better than DJ, Tony Finau, Ricky Fowler, Max Homa, and even Wyndham Clark, who just won last week at the U.S. Open. But here's the thing with Justin Thomas. 44th in strokes gained total, 24th tee to green, 72 off the tee, 48 on approach, and 151st in putting. Even though they're amazing odds for one of the best golfers we've seen in the last 5 years, I'm staying away. Who am I rolling with? I'm going to go with Tyrrell Hatton. Why? 11th in strokes gained off the tee, 5th in putting, 3rd in total strokes gained, and he's from England, knows these courses, is great on links courses, and plays extremely well in the weather conditions we're anticipating come July 20th. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to Bet. Enjoy the NBA draft tonight, and we'll see you next week.